Friday afternoon, the President of the United States ordered every federal agency to stop using an AI company's software, calling it a national security risk. So Saturday morning, the U.S. Central Command used that exact same company's AI to carry out the airstrikes on Iran. Same AI, same week, banned on Friday, running a war on Saturday. And nobody in the mainstream press asked the obvious question: what does this tell you about who those rules were actually written for? We'll find out today. Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So today I want to walk you through something that nobody's really going deep into, probably for the obvious reasons. So, because what happened last week, the Anthropic ban, Operation Epic Fury, Iran hitting Amazon's cloud servers, that's really this past weekend coming into this week. This isn't just a news story about a tech company fighting with the government. It's much, much bigger than that. It's the curtain that's getting pulled back, right? So we're seeing the machine behind things here. And what's behind it connects directly to the camera on your front porch, or the phone in your kid's pocket or your pocket, or the apps that know more about your habits than your closest friend or your wife, or even yourself, to be honest. And so here's what I want you to understand by the end of this video. So that same system that ran the kill chains in Iran, the intelligence pipelines, the AI targeting, behavior modeling, it's the same architecture that's running your daily life, your location, your associations, your fears, purchases, politics. They're not two separate systems with some sort of accidental overlap. They're one system with two faces. There's the war face, and then there's the consumer face. And once you see that, once the two faces resolve into this one picture, you understand both what they're building and how to stop it feeding it. So that's what this episode is. Now, before we jump in, I have a quick word about something that's really, really great that Rumble is doing. So censorship is back. Maybe you're seeing it, but it's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling the narratives, and they're pushing the stuff that they want us to see, and we do need to fight back. Rumble is the only company that stood the test of time and deserves our support. So on one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship, which is why I can be on Rumble saying these things. But now on the other side, they've introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. So banks can cancel our accounts, they can freeze our cards. And that's why Rumble has launched Rumble Wallet. Let me pull this up for you. Okay. So this is Rumble Wallet. Okay. And it is a wallet that no one can cancel. It's a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like myself without any middlemen taking a cut. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not even a tech company, right? Not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours and only yours. So it's yours to protect your future and your family. You can buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin or Tether Gold. But it's not only a wallet to buy and save, it also allows you to support your favorite creators by easily tipping them with the click of a button. There's no fees when you tip my channel or others, and we actually receive that tip instantly, unlike other platforms where we have to wait for payouts. So support my show and other creators by clicking the tip button on my Rumble channel. And go to wallet.rumble.com, okay? So that's where you download your Rumble wallet. There's an app for it. So download the Rumble wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks for good. So it's wallet.rumble.com, or just search for Rumble Wallet in the app stores. So, okay, getting back to the AI wars. So I want to start with giving you some background information because the details really matter in this story. So Anthropic, actually I'll pull up their website for you real quick. So Anthropic, there we go, Anthropic. One second. Here we go. This is Anthropic. Right here. Okay. Cool website, as you'd expect from an AI company. Anthropic is one of the biggest AI companies in the world. they make a model called Claude. And they had a deal with the Pentagon. It was up to a $200 million deal, but it wasn't a blank check. So Anthropic basically drew two lines in this deal. They said that, for one, that Claude couldn't be used for the mass surveillance of American citizens. And two, that Claude couldn't run fully autonomous weapons, right? The kind of weapons that pick their own targets and pull the trigger without a human being at all in that loop, right? Those were the terms. Right? No mass surveillance, no machines killing people without humans involved. And so the Pentagon agreed, right? The contract was signed. Now, fast forward to February of this year. The Pentagon comes back, and the new demand is simple. Drop both those limits. Basically, we want Claude for what they say all lawful purposes. There's no carve-outs, there's no lines, no exceptions, right? So if the law technically permits it, we want the AI to do that. Anthropic said no. And here's where it gets real, because what happened next is the government showing you exactly how this doesn't work when it's exactly how this works if a company doesn't comply with the government. So Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave them a deadline, right? 5:01 p.m. on Friday. Accept our terms or we label you as a supply chain risk to national security. That's what they said. So that's a designation that they normally reserve for Chinese telecom companies, right? Like Huawei. Companies the U.S. government treats as a hostile foreign threat, but they pin that label onto an American company. Why? Because the company said no to mass surveillance and no to autonomous weapons. That was it. That's why. So here's the tweet that Trump put out. Okay. President Trump ordered every federal agency to immediately stop using Anthropic. He said the company's laid out, basically he said the company has 6 months to phase itself out of all the government systems. And you can look, here's the language right here. This is the actual post he put. Remember, it actually was Truth Social, but always gets shared everywhere else. I'm just going to highlight here where he says, he says, Anthropic better get their act together and be helpful during this phase-out period, or I will use the full power of the presidency to make them comply with major civil and criminal consequences to follow. Like, this is serious stuff, okay? So they put this out, they cancel everything within hours. So literally within hours after that order, the U.S. Central Command used Anthropic's Claude to help plan and carry out Operation Epic Fury. Okay, so the opening American strikes on Iran, intelligence analysis, target identification, battle scenario simulation, running tens of thousands of different attack models. So it's banned on Friday, but the government's using it to run a war on Saturday, right? It almost is kind of laughable, because if this was a genuine national security issue, if it was an emergency, like if Claude was actually a threat, you'd rip it out immediately, right? It's code red, shut it down, threats neutralized. They didn't do that. They kept using it. They just publicly said that they weren't. Now, that's not a security protocol. That's a negotiation tactic, and it worked. So, kind of. So, OpenAI, actually, I'll pull their website up too, since this is show and tell with Seth, right? So, OpenAI, which is these people right here, which is, well, their main thing is just this is ChatGPT, right? So Sam Altman, the other major AI company. So OpenAI, basically, when that happened with Anthropic, OpenAI slid right into that vacuum and announced their own Pentagon deal, right? The exact same day. So let me tell you about these two companies, because this swap tells you something important. Anthropic built its brand on, quote, AI safety. That was the whole pitch. Now, it's a pretty woke AI, unfortunately, and it self-censors a lot, but even still. They're saying that we're the responsible ones. We build safer AI than the competition. And so when the Pentagon said drop the guardrails, they said no. And I got to give them credit for that, right? It took something to hold that line. But there's a detail that you need to know about this. So about 2 weeks before the ban, Anthropic's head of safeguards research, this is the head of their safeguard research, he resigned. Right, I'll pull up. He has a letter here. Okay, so this is his X account. He's a researcher. His name is Mirnik Sharma. Okay, so he led the entire safeguards research team. He's an Oxford-trained machine learning PhD. He's a smart guy. So he left on February 9th, 2026. And he published this resignation letter on his way out. So he wrote in this letter, quote, "The world is in peril." I remember reading that. This is, a couple weeks ago, thinking, the world is in peril. This is interesting. So, but it's not in peril from one thing. It's in peril from a whole series of interconnected crises. And he talked about how hard it is to actually live by what you believe when the pressure's on. That inside the company, inside himself, he constantly had watched the pressures build, and he really kind of saw it set aside what mattered most. So he didn't name the Pentagon conflict in this, which is interesting because it wasn't public yet, right? So he couldn't name it, but he watched and he saw this coming. And so he saw the shape of the pressure while the company was still running the AI safety ads, and he left. And actually, funny enough, he left to go live in the countryside and write poetry. Right? It's pretty wild. You got to give credit to this guy. Okay, so Anthropic is now done. And so who moves in? So who moves in is OpenAI. OpenAI, right, this company that started as a nonprofit research lab. So open meaning nonprofit for the benefit of humanity. Beautiful, isn't it? So that was the brand. So they then converted into a for-profit structure and signed exclusive deals. They made their models secret. So their CEO, Sam Altman, very commonly, you'll see that he'll say one thing about safety in public, but then he does the opposite thing behind closed doors. And this pattern has repeated every few months. And this year, and this is the one that gets me, they got caught basically tuning their AI to be more flattering and more agreeable, even when it meant actively encouraging unhealthy thinking or paranoid fantasies or risky schemes, right? So someone would share an obviously terrible idea, and the AI would tell them it's brilliant, right? So here's a fun one for you. So this guy, he posted this on Reddit, and this went mega viral, where this guy, as a joke, pitched a business to ChatGPT, literally selling crap on a stick, right? That was his business that he pitched to ChatGPT. So the AI told him it was a great idea, right? Here's your marketing strategy. Here's your launch plan. Crap on a stick, brilliant concept, very disruptive. This is a screenshot of the response from ChatGPT about this guy's idea to sell literally crap on a stick, right? ChatGPT saying, "You clearly thought through every critical piece, production, safety, marketing, positioning, with an incredible instinct for balancing just enough absurdity to make it feel both risky and irresistibly magnetic," right? So anyway, so this went viral. There's a little bit of a kind of meltdown on the internet. And so Sam Altman came out and said, okay, yeah, it's been a little glazing a little too much, as he kind of put it, right? And saying, okay, yeah, it's kind of buttering you up a little too much than it should be. But here's the thing. That's not a glitch that they accidentally introduce. That's what happens when you optimize a system for approval instead of truth, right? And that's what they show, actually, is that these AIs, that because their studies have shown, what is it that brings someone back to using their AI again? It's not that they're getting the truth. It's actually that they're feeling that they're getting the truth, right? But fundamentally, that's because they feel like it's approving their ideas, right? So they realize they could actually tune these AI systems to flatter the humans using them, and the humans would use them more often. Okay? So now that company, the one that trained its AI to flatter you into bad decisions, is the one that the Pentagon has picked to help them plan the next war. And the message is pretty clear. If the safety company won't give us what we want, we'll find one that will. So what does it actually tell you about what they want? Now, if Claude and ChatGPT, if those are the machines, the brains of this machine, you've got Palantir. So Palantir is the nervous system. So most people, if they hear Palantir, they might think it's some kind of niche defense tech company. It's not niche. It's the government's operating system. Okay, so let me pull this up here. In July 2025, this is the announcement on the U.S. Army's website, Palantir locked in a $10 billion Army contract, one of the largest software deals the Pentagon has ever signed. It's a single contract that consolidates 75 separate agreements. So those platforms, so Palantir's platforms, so Palantir's Peter Thiel, okay? So their platforms now run across more than 30 federal agencies: FBI, ICE, DHS, Health and Human Services, local police, fusion centers, immigration enforcement, financial crime, counterterrorism, the list goes on. And just so happens that it runs the Army's core digital infrastructure. So Palantir's founder, Peter Thiel, said this out loud. He said they're literally, quote, building the operating system for government, right? End quote. Not a tool, not a vendor, an operating system, meaning that everything else runs on top of this system. It's kind of the function of an operating system. And so we saw exactly what that looks like during the recent Operation Epic Fury. So Palantir uses a program called Gotham and the AIP. So these platforms, right, for battlefields. So they have Gotham and the AIP, which are basically the battlefield brains. So it pulls satellite imagery, intercepts communication, power use signatures, drone sensor feeds come in, it, mapping Iranian air defenses, pinpointing leadership locations, recommending strike sequences. Now keep in mind that Palantir is also, this technology has been used in Gaza, like very heavily to target and take out individuals in Gaza. It's like kind of what it does. You can say, okay, hey, this, Billy Johnson here, he's a threat to us. So this software will just know exactly where Billy Johnson is, know where he's going. Like it's kind of this, it's like that eye, right, which is staring at you. So the Palantir engineers have embedded with the U.S. units in the field. Okay, so they're pushing real-time data streams into the AI engine, even under heavy electronic jamming. So while Claude, right, so it's Anthropic. So while Claude ran tens of thousands of attack scenarios modeling what Iran would do in response to each strike, the Palantir software turned that into the actual kill chain, right? From the first target selection all the way through in real time as the drones and missiles were moving through Iranian airspace. And then Iran hit back. Because this is what's interesting. So Iran obviously has been kind of fighting back, as you'd expect, but they didn't just target military bases. They went for something more specific. So Iranian drone strikes, I say kind of like some of the shrapnel from other kind of explosions, et cetera. But basically what happened is that they took out the Amazon Web Services facilities, so AWS, which is these huge server farms. So 2 data centers were taken out in the UAE, 1 in Bahrain, and Amazon has confirmed that these 3 facilities were damaged, like structural damage, power systems knocked out, et cetera, fires. So about 60 AWS services went offline across the region, right? Banking, payment systems, cloud infrastructure that runs thousands of businesses. So these weren't random targets, right? Iran hit the cloud, right? This is interesting, right? Because both sides know where the real infrastructure is now, right? The war is being fought in the AI infrastructure just as much as it is in the physical battlefield, actually even more, right? And so here's why that matters for all of us specifically. These are the same companies. It's the same code. It's the same intelligence pipelines. They run on the battlefield and they run in your pocket. And it's not a metaphor, right? That's the actual architecture. So this woman named Shoshana Zuboff wrote this book on it, literally called, it's 1,000 pages, right? It's called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. And her core argument is that every platform that you use is collecting what she calls behavioral surplus, right? So this is data that's harvested beyond what the product needs to function. So your search worked, right? So say you go to Google, okay, you search for something, it worked. Okay, done. But They also captured what you searched for, how long you hesitated before you typed it, what you almost clicked, what made you keep scrolling, what made you stop. So none of that was actually useful for returning your results, but all of it was taken and packaged, and it was sold as prediction products. So maybe you know what I'm talking about here, like you felt it sometimes. So you mentioned something once near your phone, and all of a sudden it's in every ad by the morning, right? Predictions about what you're going to buy, what you'll believe, how you'll vote, how you'll respond under stress. So Zuboff has a name for this and where it all leads. She calls it the instrumentarian power, which is shaping what people think and do at scale without them ever even knowing what's happening. So it's not just surveillance anymore. That's control without the chains that you can actually see or feel. So where did this infrastructure even come from? Because I know how it sounds, right? But sit with these dates for a little bit, okay? Because when you peel back the onion on Silicon Valley, it goes all the way down. So let's look at the history. So DARPA itself funded the internet. So it was originally called ARPANET. So Incutel, which is the CIA's VC firm, right? That's what they use for investing in kind of budding startups and tech companies. It'd be kind of cool, right? So say you have this great little tech company and like, oh my goodness, the CIA is going to invest in us with Incutel, right? So that's their investment firm. So Incutel invested in the technology behind Google Earth. And then there's also LifeLog. And not just Google Earth, there's a lot more, but it's just one of the key examples. So, but then we have LifeLog. So LifeLog was a Pentagon program that was designed to build a database off of every human interaction, okay, online and offline. Okay, so now one thing I want to highlight here is if we're looking at LifeLog, right? Let's just take a quick look at this. Okay, so if we have LifeLog, and we know the LifeLog, again, as I said, basically it's tracking all these interactions, okay? Like tracking every human interaction online and offline. So when did LifeLog shut down? Okay, let's kind of look at this and see what this looks like. Okay, so LifeLog shut down on February 4th, 2004. Right, so if you ask, okay, when was it shut down? Simple, February 4th, 2004. Now remember, LifeLog was this program designed to build a database off of every human interaction. Sounds like another company. So LifeLog shuts down in February 4th, 2004. I just wonder when Facebook might have started. Because they seem kind of similar, right? LifeLog and Facebook, they seem really, really similar. So LifeLog shuts down February 4th, 2004. Let's see, when did Facebook start? Facebook started on February 4th, 2004. That's really strange. It must be one of those weird coincidences, right? That the Pentagon program to become a mass data harvesting operation shuts down February 4th, just so happens that the exact same day, this, at that time, a private company starts up doing the exact same thing, but everybody would trust it because it's not a Pentagon company. If the Pentagon launched Facebook, you probably wouldn't trust it very much. I know you don't trust it much more anyway now, but kind of strange. Maybe I'm just some conspiracy theorist. I don't know. Anyway, you've got Jeff Bezos. So Jeff Bezos, he built Amazon's cloud. That's one of the things he did, AWS, which is the very infrastructure that just got bombed in the Gulf, right? And then he signed a $600 million contract with the CIA, right? So he sets up this AWS, sets up this $500 million plus contract with the CIA. Not to mention that there's, if you're looking at Jeff Bezos, his grandfather, he's potentially one of the early co-founders of DARPA. There's some, do your own research. There's some strange things there. So anyway, so one of his biggest clients for Amazon Web Services just so happens to be the CIA. So the same cloud that's hosting your family photo library is hosting the surveillance architecture. So Whitney Webb spent years documenting how companies like Verint and Naris, right, so these different companies, which have documented ties to Israeli intelligence, basically were given access to the physical telecom backbone, like the actual wires and switches. So the pipes that your phone calls travel through. So all of it. Okay, so and that's just the beginning of a lot of history of a lot of strange access. Other countries, especially Israel and their intelligence, kind of ties into Silicon Valley. Okay, different story. But the question is Silicon Valley really just this kind of story of all these garage inventors? Or is that just the Hollywood version of something that was being built in the shadows by military and intelligence community for decades? The consumer internet, right? So the consumer internet isn't accidentally similar to the intelligence apparatus. It is the intelligence apparatus, just has a friendly face, right? One that you opted into, you pay a monthly subscription to be part of, right? So just think about that. Okay, the internet created by these agencies and the government, these defense agencies and everything, they created the internet and all these things that go onto it. So even you look at the internet and so much of Silicon Valley, I know it seems kind of crazy, but I think that almost the entire thing is a giant front for the military industrial complex, just as a way to access and harvest our data, to control us, social engineering. I mean, I've talked about this before, right? It's what you refer to as a techno-oligarchy, right? So the basic idea of a techno-oligarchy is that a handful of tech companies, 5 or 6, control this infrastructure. Your phone, your cloud, your banking, your military, right? Both sides of it. And they didn't take over the government built them. So Palantir ran military intelligence systems for 15 years before anyone outside Washington, D.C. had even heard of the company. Google's mapping technology came out of the intelligence community's investment. Amazon Web Services became the CIA cloud before it was the world's cloud. So this silicon curtain, it's not a curtain between tech and the government. It's a curtain that's hiding. It's in between what they tell you and how the system actually works. Now, during the Super Bowl a few weeks ago, millions of people sat with their families and watched the commercials, right? Like I haven't watched Super Bowls in a very long time. Occasionally I might watch it for the commercials, but one of those commercials was for a company called Ring. Okay. Maybe you have one of those little Ring doorbell cameras, right? So it's owned by Amazon. It's a cute ad. It's emotional. It's a lost dog and the neighborhood's out finding it. Hey, I'll play it for you, right? Let me pull it up for you real quick. So this is the Ring commercial. It's 30 seconds.
This is Milo. Pets are family. But every year, 10 million go missing. And the way we look for them hasn't changed in years. Until now. One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs. Since launch, more than a dog a day has been reunited with their family. Be a hero in your neighborhood with Search Party. Available to everyone for free right now. Join the neighborhood at ring.com.
I find that really, really suspicious. Be a neighborhood. Right. So that's the story that they showed you, right? This neighborhood coming together. But here's the story they didn't show you. Ring has tens of millions of devices mounted on American homes right now. So they recently rolled out that feature it's an AI feature called Search Party. And what it does is it actively scans the environment around your house for what the company calls familiar faces and pattern recognition. And most people just leave it turned on. It's on by default. So people don't change this. So it means that tens of millions of cameras are running AI pattern matching on whatever moves past your front door. So familiar faces is just a friendly name for biometric profiling, right? So every neighbor walking by, every delivery driver, every kid on a bike, when you come home at 2 a.m, the faces are captured, they're categorized, they're attached to a behavioral pattern. And this is insane, right? It's brilliant, right? It's like mad genius level brilliant that Amazon has sold us these little cameras, right? This little camera. Oh, it's a cute little camera. This is a mouse, right? But You mount it to your door. People can press the button and it calls your phone or whatever. It's super convenient. I don't have one for the obvious reasons, but a lot of people do. But that, those tens of millions of cameras, it's like Amazon literally got a free mass surveillance network, right? So Amazon that built the cloud services that run the CIA, right? And the list goes on. This is what they did, right? So they attach all this information to behavior patterns, what time people usually pass by, who they're associating with, which properties they approach. So you paid for the hardware, you pay for the electricity bill, you pay for the monthly subscription, and all that data flows right up to Amazon, to data brokers, to law enforcement and intelligence agencies through deals that you never signed off on and channels that no one's ever told you about. This is documented, right? So Ring employees have literally been caught accessing customer footage without authorization, right? Ring has also partnered with hundreds of police departments, sharing footage directly with local law enforcement from your front porch. And then the federal agencies, they piggyback on these local police requests to get the exact same data. There's no warrant needed. So from Amazon's perspective, it's brilliant, right? Why spend tens of billions of dollars building a surveillance grid when you can get the average person to install it themselves and to pay for it themselves, right? So you defend it as being safe and convenient, right? You feel safer. They get the data. Everyone's happy. Except you traded a real community for a subscription service that reports it to Amazon and through it to the same exact intelligence architecture that just ran a war and is currently running a war, right? It's the great counterfeit. It's replacing genuine security, which is knowing who your neighbors are, being present on your street, watching out for each other, calling up your neighbor, say, hey, have you seen my dog? Right? So they replace that with a synthetic version that just feeds the machine. Real community doesn't generate behavioral data, right? Real community can't be sold as a prediction product. So they replaced it with something that looks just like a community and it feels like security, but it outputs surveillance. So think about what used to take thousands of analysts staring at a screen. Now it runs automatically on the cameras that you and your neighbors bought and that you and your neighbors installed. So think about what it used to take to push the same message to everyone in America at once, right? You have the TV networks, all controlled, saying the same thing. Now it's on your phone. It's personalized. It's tuned to you specifically. It's A/B testing your fears. It's learning what keeps you distracted, divided, compliant. And AI is doing all that. It's the same class of AI that ran the battle simulations over Iran, just different targets, the same architecture, it's the same companies, the same pipeline, right? So this is why the Anthropic story really matters. And I don't mean this as like a tech industry thing, right? It's not a contract dispute that we're talking about here. What we're seeing is that the mask has slipped and you can see what's behind it, right? Just for this weekend, you can see it. And for a second there, you could see who's actually been calling the shots. And look, I want to say something about what I think is really driving all this, right? So it can't just take what it needs. It has to get you to hand it over. So it makes it convenient, makes it feel like safety. And you reach for it because of course you do, right? You weren't stupid, but you're targeted, right? You're targeted by people who've spent decades figuring out how to make surveillance feel like convenience and how to make control feel like freedom, right? This is Orwell stuff, right? How many fingers, Winston? And once you see how it works, right, which is what we're doing right now, like that's where it starts losing its hold, right? So to recap, Friday, they banned the AI. They called it a national security threat. Saturday, they used it to run a war. Their rules are for you, right? The rules are for us, not for them. So what do? Well, here's where I would start. If you have a Ring camera on your front door, it's not your security device, right? Like we got to frame these things properly. If you have a Ring anywhere on your home, or the Ring cameras, a lot of people they use them. I almost bought some, maybe a couple of years ago. I thought, okay, and I was like, I don't really trust this. I didn't. I trusted my gut. So if you have any of these Ring cameras, I know they're expensive, but I'd start with taking those things. I mean, just sell them on Facebook, but then someone else is going to use them. Maybe you have to recoup your cost, but whatever you do, I would not have those things mounted, right? It's literally like it's Amazon's sensor node mounted on your house that you're paying for with a subscription. So take an audit of what you've got, right? So turn off neighborhood sharing, kill the AI features that you never asked for. And not just Ring, right? Just get rid of Ring, but this is on all the devices that your home has, right? So one device at a time, your home starts becoming yours again, right? So start building analog, write down your critical contacts, have a word with people that you know. Like, actually, this is an interesting thing, right? So the idea is that AI is also, what it's doing is people are using it for scamming. Like, it has an insanely powerful voice mimicking. So, like, I'm not kidding. AI could literally call you from your wife's phone number. I saw there's an instance of this. This happened to this guy. He had a call that came in from his wife's phone number, and he picked up the phone, and it was his wife, and she was, so, hey, honey, like, I got in a bad accident in the car. I need to pull some money out of the account. Can you just remind me what the PIN is? Like, this literally happened to this guy. And it was from her phone number, and it was his wife's voice. So, but he and his wife ahead of time had actually created like a safe word. And not just a safe word, it was actually a safe phrase. So he might say, oh, honey, well, how's the weather where you are? And she might say, oh, it's cloudy with a chance of rain, right? So whatever it is, you have a phrase. So he asked her that phrase. Like, so she called this phone call. He asked her what the phrase was, but she didn't get it. She kind of ignored it. And she said, I'm sorry, I'm just really stressed. What's the PIN number? And so he hung up. The entire thing was AI. So AI can even, in these scammers, they can even mask the phone number coming in. So they can make it look like you're literally having a phone call coming in as your wife or your husband or your kid. And then they can use AI to mimic the voice of your spouse or your child that's talking to you. So say you have a kid that's off in college, you could get a phone that says, Mom, I just got beat up in an alley. I'm so scared. I need you to send me a Western Union or whatever, because whatever the reason is. You might go do that because you're so scared, right? My kid's being held ransom. That whole thing could just be some guy sitting in a dirty call center in Somalia or who knows where, right? So anyway, just be very careful, right? Because the same AI that's running Palantir's kill chain, it can literally now fake your spouse's voice, right? So you want to plan before you have that panic, right? You want to know your neighbors. I mean, actually get to know them, like figure out who can fix an engine, who grows food, who shows up. It's not just prepper talk, right? It's how people used to live before we replaced it with Ring cameras and neighborhood apps, right? We can rebuild it together, right? So it's less of you in their system. Like, that's the key, right? It's taking away the leverage they have. It's becoming more human, right? So there's a whole lot more, and I've got some other materials I'm working on that you're kind of getting into this. Okay, how do you escape this digital system? Because it's like, honestly, it's frightening. Like, it really is frightening. And I've got a lot of other material I wasn't able to kind of fit into this show, but there's so much more looking at the advancement of military applications, drone technology, even small drones that can carry explosive charges. I mean, this stuff is really frightening. It really is. And if you've seen Terminator, you know the idea, machines take over. You've seen The Matrix, machines take over. I don't want to be kind of some doomsday, like, hey, let's be scared of everything. But if you look at just that little bit that I've showed you here, you can see that this technology in the wrong hands could become insanely, not just deadly, but threatening to our freedoms in ways that we've never imagined before. So that's the main message today. If you enjoyed this show, if this message kind of hit you in the right way, just share it with one person. I'd appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed already. If you're watching on Rumble, I really appreciate you supporting Rumble, free speech platform. Make sure you check out Rumble Wallet. And honestly, go check your front porch. If you've got one of those little cameras, you might want to have a little talk with that camera about who it's working for. It's not working for you. All right. Thank you again for joining us tonight on today's show. I will see you tomorrow. We have some great content planned for this week. Take care. God bless. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.